So I'd like to welcome Dave Evans to tell us about this past summer at the ABMI.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sid. And I'm excited to be here to share the summer 2022 field season review presentation. So let's get into it. So this is going to be just a brief kind of overview. We do a lot of work over the 4-month summer field season from beginning of May 1st until the end of our season in August. So this presentation is just going to go a brief overview of what we did this year. I'm going to start off with ABMI, what we do, and then we're going to look into the ecosystem health program for this past summer, and then our oil sands monitoring program from this past summer as well. And I guess I should start by saying as well, ABMI is a huge organization, and we're really going to focus on the monitoring center, and I'll show a bit about the structure of ABMI as well here. So ABMI, what do? We walk around like bison in the woods. No, that's part of what we do. We track changes in Alberta's wildlife and their habitats from border to border and provide ongoing, relevant, scientifically credible information on Alberta's living resources. So we're an arm's length, not-for-profit organization. We're jointly delivered by the University of Alberta and Innotech Alberta. We report on the status and trend of over 3,000 species of birds, mammals, plants, lichens, mosses, amphibians, aquatic invertebrates, and soil mites. And we monitor and report on the status and trends of these habitats that they live in, and vegetation and human footprint and how that impacts all of these organisms as well. So how does this kind of work? So the ABMI has all of these different centers, and they're housed within different organizations. So within the University of Alberta, we have our processing center and our operations center. And then the geospatial center is housed by the University of Alberta and the University of Calgary. And then the information center and science center is a joint partnership with staff working for both University of Alberta and Innotech Alberta. And the monitoring center, for which I work with, and we're going to focus mostly on for the rest of this presentation, is housed within Innotech Alberta. Now, all of these different groups work together to form what the ABMI is, and they all have different roles and each help throughout the season. And I can't go into all the detail on how each center specifically helps out with what we do in the summer for the field season. So I'm really just going to focus on what we do with the monitoring center, but I just wanted to make it known that all of the other centers help out tremendously, and it's a real team effort. All right, so we're into the ecosystem health program. So this is probably, if you've known about the ABMI, this is the longest standing program that we have. So you've probably seen this image before. So our ecosystem health program is our grid style monitoring program. We monitor sites. There's 1,656 sites that we monitor, and they're spaced 20 kilometers apart as a grid overlaying the province. So from north to south, east to west, every 20 kilometers roughly, there is one of our sites. So at each location, ABMI technicians record the species that are present and measure a variety of habitat characteristics as well. So sites are visited on a 5 to 15-year rotation, and each dot on this map represents both a terrestrial site and a paired aquatic site. Our terrestrial sites are visited twice each field season, twice or 3 times each field season, and once during the winter. And our aquatic sites are visited once during the summer as well, sometimes twice as well. So each of these dots represents a lot of time invested by a lot of people to be able to go throughout the season, throughout the summer, and the winter as well. So this past field season with the ecosystem health program, our crews completed spring and summer protocols at 41 terrestrial sites and aquatic protocols at 27 aquatic wetland sites. So it may seem like a bit of it's not a huge number, but the idea of this is it's a huge scope. There's a huge amount of area that we're covering, and there's a lot of revisits and going back to the same sites. and accessing these difficult locations. So it's a lot of work. And here's a little graphic just to kind of show over time how we've been able to go and visit these sites in the order that they've been going in. So each dot represents one of the sites that we visited and how we've been mapping out the whole province over time. So these 41 sites for terrestrial and 27 aquatic are helping to fill this grid of information. So what do we actually do at these sites? I've said we keep going back to these sites multiple times. So our first visit at the ecosystem health sites, at our terrestrial sites, we're going out and we're outlining the sites. We're going and establishing them. We're putting out lines with tape and compasses to make sure we create the straight lines. We're flagging them as well. So we're making sure that we know exactly where our plots are located. And once we have our sites established, then we'll actually start collecting some of the data and protocol information. So our first spring protocol visits, this includes collecting downed woody material measurements, moss and lichen collections, tree stand measurements, and a lot more. We're just doing a brief overview. So this is some of the stuff we collect in the spring. And then in the summer, when we return, we're collecting the trail cameras and ARUs. We're retrieving them. These were deployed in the winter previously. We're collecting, we're sampling the vegetation, doing a vegetation monitoring program, and we're collecting tree cores as well. And you guessed it, and more. So that's kind of the terrestrial side of things. Now at our aquatic wetlands, when we go to these in the summer, we're collecting water quality measurements, we're collecting aquatic invertebrate collections, and we have an aquatic vegetation monitoring program as well. So we're doing this consistently at all of these sites, regardless of where they fall in the province. We do the same protocols in the north as we do in the south, as we do in the foothills and mountains, in the prairies. So consistent monitoring. Oh, yeah, and more. So we've been also examining some new things as well. So we have a large amount of trail cameras that we have out across the province. So one program that we started last year is we deployed a number of sites. We revisited them and we deployed cameras at different heights to see how our cameras are actually detecting and how accurately we're detecting small critters that we may not be, just to see if a moose walks by, if we're going to get the same detectability as something smaller, say a squirrel goes by on the ground. So we have cameras at 1 meter and at 5 meters. So the ecosystem health program went and collected these cameras. So we're really excited to see what kind of information we get from them. This was at 5 sites this past summer. And our ecosystem health program is looking at our vascular plant monitoring system as well. So we're trialing a new system of collecting vascular plant information at our terrestrial sites. So this includes going to 21 terrestrial field sites this past summer and doing our typical vascular plant monitoring system and a new one to be able to compare between the two data sets and see which one we would like to move forward with. If there's a way to increase efficiency and increase our data capacity for that. So we completed a new vascular plant sampling methodology trial at 21 terrestrial field sites this past summer as well. And another thing too, we did on the ecosystem health side. So at our aquatic invertebrate collections, we have our own methodology here at ABMI, but we're also the CABIN protocol, the Canadian Aquatic Biomonitoring Network protocol has really come out as a Canada-wide framework. So we've been collecting the CABIN protocol as well as our protocol at 12 wetlands this past season, just to be able to compare our samples and see how if we can merge our data sets and be able to how comparable these two protocols are. So we completed this at 12 of our wetland sites as well this year. Yeah, so that's our ecosystem health program. Here's our team from this past summer. So this team was based in Lac-La-Biche. Our full-time staff included 3 field coordinators, 1 logistics coordinator, and 2 full-time technicians. And for seasonal staff, we had 5 terrestrial monitoring crews, 3 aquatic monitoring crews, and 2 seasonal support technologists. A lot of work went into this past season, a lot of tough days, a lot of bugs, a lot of muddy roads, and a lot of quads. So great work, everybody. It takes a village to put a field season like this together. And our oil sands monitoring program. So this is our other side of ABMI now with our monitoring center. So we have our oil sands monitoring program. This is part of the OSM terrestrial-based monitoring program. It's a collaborative monitoring of oil and gas disturbances on species of interest across the oil sands region. So it's a very collaborative approach, with a lot of other organizations. And this year, our focus, ABMI's program focus, were on vascular plants, mammals, birds, and ground truthing. So in the OSM this year, for our focus on mammals and birds, this was our 2nd year of implementation of this program. We used cameras and ARUs to monitor mammals and birds in the OSM. Our trail camera deployments were also partially in collaboration with Dr. Jason Fisher from ABMI lab at the University of Victoria. Throughout this program, we were following the BADR before after dose response study design. So looking at different disturbances on the landscapes and having a before and after kind of look at these disturbances and how they impact the species of focus. So this past season, we have our ARUs and cameras at the bottom of the screen there. We deployed 285 trail cameras over the oil sands monitoring region and 200 autonomous recording units between the area of Cold Lake and Fort McKay. So a huge, vast area and a lot of units put out into that area as well by our crews. Yeah, a lot of fun days out in the land there for that. So we pair our units up as well, so we have a camera and an ARU on the same tree, so that we're able to go out to these areas and get most bang for our buck and be as efficient as possible to monitor for both of these species in these focal areas. Our next program that we were working on with OSM this year was our vascular plant monitoring program. This is a collaboration with Dr. Scott Nielsen from the ACE lab at the University of Alberta. This is our 1st year of implementation for this program. So monitoring focal vegetation on and away from disturbance edges. So following the before after dose response design. So we're looking at our focal species. So we have focal disturbance species and focal non-disturbed species. So we're seeing how they are affected by different disturbances on the landscape. So from a cut line, from a road, how are they disturbed as you go further into the undisturbed forest. We also deployed these TOMPS abiotic sensors along these transects, so we have more of an idea of the abiotic factors that were also playing into this difference in species diversities. So our crews, we had crews that were focused on this, and they established and surveyed 111 transects between Cold Lake and Fort McKay. So this included multiple site visits to each transect and going back at different times of the years to either establish a transect or survey the transect. So a lot of work as well going into that. So next, I mentioned we also did a lot of ground truthing with the OSM program this year. So this was in collaboration with the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta in the Richardson area. We took on some ground truthing with this group, looking at cutline regeneration to evaluate caribou habitat reclamation. So there was 4 large remote focal areas in the Richardson area, which is north of Fort McKay. And our crews went in and collected 360-degree images. They were captured and habitat data recorded throughout these circular, as you see on the screen there, throughout that big circle, going through the cut lines and collecting that information. And as we're going between those areas, we take the 360-degree image. We're actually collecting video of traversing that landscape as well just to add more information for the ground truthing effort. And so here you can see one of our staff collecting one of the 360-degree images. And while we were doing this, we were also coordinating with the Boreal Ecosystem Recovery and Assessment Program. So we're looking at regeneration survey measurements in the Freya Richardson study area as well. So looking at plant ID, percent cover of species, ecosites, aging trees, and stem count as well. So not only were we doing this in the Richardson area, which is north of Fort McKay, but we were also doing this near Wabasca in the west side of the Athabasca River. So there we were doing ground truthing for cut line regeneration to evaluate caribou habitat reclamation. Collected this in 3 large remote focal areas, collected 360-degree images, captured for habitat data recording as well, and we collected video information between these image locations. Awesome. And then we also took part in a collaboration with the Alberta Environment and Parks team for the oil sands wetlands monitoring program to assist in developing, collecting, and managing wetland data and samples. So we're monitoring water quality, vascular plants, and cryptograms. So these sites were all around the Fort McMurray area. We established 50 wetlands, and 47 of these wetlands were sampled. So this was a big collaboration with the AEP oil sands wetlands team. And this took staff from many different centers within the ABMI to actually go out and conduct the field work and help with this new program that we haven't taken a part of before. So this included staff from the monitoring center, the processing center, and the science center. So lots of hard work and being out in the field with everyone there. And here's a little image of collecting some of the vegetation monitoring at the sites. All right, and here's our oil sands monitoring team. We were based in St. Paul this year. This included full-time staff, 2 field coordinators, and 1 full-time technician. And then for seasonal staff, we had 4 field crews, 1 wetland logistics coordinator, and 1 summer support technologist. So busy crew all over the OSM this year. And between the OSM team and the EH team, both of these different programs took part with our Wetland Atlas program with Ducks Unlimited. It's a joint collaboration with Ducks Unlimited Canada. We're ground truthing wetlands to help create a wall-to-wall wetland map of the province. And wetlands were surveyed by crews from both the EH and OSM bases and classified. Wetlands were classified, and there's lots of information about habitat recovered. And we collected a lot of photos to be able to help verify these map layers. Awesome, and here's just a couple of photos from the season, including Argo naps. We got some peanut butter and jelly sushi going on, lots of fun Argos, great field days and waders, really hot days, fun with the quads, helicopters, and fixing Argos again. So that's kind of it from me at this point, but I would love to answer any questions that if there are any out there. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Dave. That was a great tour of the many places that we went this summer. It seems like wherever you are in Alberta, there could be an ABMI field crew nearby.
Absolutely.